Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Monastery Live, the show where we hot dog, grandstand, and have absolutely no plan for about 2 hours. It is July 1st, 2018, Canada Day for those up north of where I am. As always, I am your gaming monk, and in abeyance we have good brother Doku, who is unfortunately not here yet. Good brother Nameless, who, aka Aaron, who still isn't here yet. And last but certainly not least, good brother Flatmeister.
Hey,
So this has been an interesting bit of a week. I had my umbrella destroyed because Mother Nature. Because, well, Mother Nature is on drugs. Which drugs? All of them. And hello there, Kyoryu, showing up in the chat. Saying, from the eastern fringe I come, bearing the word of the greater good. The greater good. Shut it! Geek of the Week this time is, for the first time ever, a twofer. Because there were two really stupid things that occurred, and I can't choose a winner. The first Geek of the Week goes to Bioware. Specifically, the guy who was doing that rapid-fire interview not too long ago. And argued that the reason why Mass Effect Andromeda did not get a fair shake was because it was released in a competitive time frame. And then tried to paraphrase it by saying, how about it was released the same time as Zelda?
oh my god! And then why did they release it at the same? That's the thing I don't get. If they're gonna pass the blame.
Well, it does seem like they're trying to rationalize it. Although in the process of defending himself, he did say that Andromeda was a flawed game. But he tried to also say that the expectations were too high on them. To which I said, bollocks. That is a load of bollocks, because other titles were released in very competitive markets and they still succeeded. And second, you are putting in an entry into one of the most, a very well-regarded, if sometimes controversial, science fiction franchise. So expecting that you wouldn't have expectations is a fantasy, and not the kind of fantasy that you're supposed to be writing about. And also there's the fact that, as Peter Cushing once said about the success of Star Wars, failure has 1,000 words. Success doesn't need one. The other thing that comes to mind is the fact that Persona 5 had come out in a very competitive time frame, and it managed to hold its own fairly well, even with the attempts at trying to non-controversy about its translation, which was just a complete and total load. But the secondary Geek of the Week goes to everybody who decided to run with that ambulance chasing story about Doki Doki Literature Club, including the BBC.
I've yet to play that. I've installed it, but yeah, yet to play it.
And I see that good brother Aaron has finally arrived.
You know what I hate?
A lot of things.
Motherfuckers that call by the Legion 15 minutes before your shift ends.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, I can completely relate. Good to see you. You didn't show up too late. You're only a few minutes. We were just going through the Geek of the Week. First Geek of the Week.
Okay, who's the dumpster fire?
First Geek of the Week goes to BioWare for making excuses about Andromeda. We didn't get a fair shake because we came out at the same time as Breath of the Wild.
Bullshit.
Yep. And then saying that they had unrealistic expectations put on them.
My ass. Have they seen their freaking character work? It's worse than It's worse than I've seen. Remember that game Perfect Dark from the 64? The character design looked a lot better than that.
My face is tired.
Yeah, I think I do have to wonder if someone at BioWare is butt mad that the legacy of Andromeda is going to be that phrase.
Yeah, it killed a fucking franchise.
Because what was her name? Sam Maggs, that one that did that interview on like NBC or something, saying, what was it? Someone playing GTA 5 online like used mods or hacks and like used internal animation assets within the single campaign, but hacked it that it would control your online character and literally make everyone start pole dancing in the air. Like you had no control. You had no control over your character. Like these hacks would make your character start pretend humping as well. Like, but the journalist was in the little documentary video bit was going real depictions of realistic sexual assault, and it shows a person with
spooky language,
and it shows
spooky language.
There's a cone on top of someone's head, and they're just standing there while this other character is doing a sex animation, like just rutting in the air. It was just so fun with the journalist saying realistic depiction. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, they're fucking busybodies. It's like what's going on in the Bay Area with all these busybodies? You know, you have busybodies in gaming. Shit, you can't even sell any fucking water without some busybody calling the cops on you.
Oh god, permit Patty.
Yeah.
Well,
should she have gone into the Geek of the Week as well?
Yeah. Well, I have been a little too America centric with my Geek of the Week entries over the last few weeks. So I think it's time we acknowledge our dumbasses on the other side of the pond, because the secondary Geek of the Week is the BBC.
What they do now?
Okay, now this is a bit sad, and a bit stupid. There was that story a few days ago of a kid who sadly committed suicide, and the father went on this thing and tried to blame his playing of Doki Doki Literature Club, and this got to the point where the BBC covered it and tried to take his side on it, even though he blatantly lied about several things with the game, saying that it would text you in the middle of the night, which it doesn't. Saying that it would be monitoring you, which it's not, and a bunch of other lies. Plus, there was the whole thing of them using that age-old chestnut that because of its art style, let's say, it's for kids.
Well, that's the BBC for you, man. They just ignore news about actual sick bastards basically drugging and raping girls, and yet all of a sudden they're more worried about this shit and people shit posting on Twitter.
Yeah, I saw Jeremy's thing where an interview that was an eye-opening experience, and
yeah, it's like
yes, Kyoryu, I smell that fresh laid bullshit.
Yeah, it's like now. So apparently now Metro. I'm sure you'll have my back on this, Flat, but it seems like the Metro Police are now run by a bunch of Soviet-era commissars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that you can get locked up for posting with hand quotation marks here, an offensive tweet or comment on your Facebook or whichever, get arrested.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
yeah, UK turned Soviet Russia, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yes, Kyoryu, now here's the thing. As a bit of an explanation for what I'm going to bring up, since Kyoryu commented on it, I end up watching Tsunami with a few friends on Saturdays, and last night they had debuted the dubbed version of Pop Team Epic, and I had seen memes and all that, and I knew kind of what I was getting into, but I was not prepared. Somehow it's just as WTF watching it dubbed as it is subbed, and they do the same gimmick of doing the same thing in the second half of an episode, just with different voice actors. It shows like this are the reason why I don't do drugs.
Whoever's doing that shit, whoever was doing the dub probably was overdosing on bath salts.
Well, it's not a case of bad dub. It's very hard to find a bad dub these days. Well, at least, but maybe I'm biased because I grew up with the Animiego dubs, which are atrocious. But it is something that has to be seen to believe, just to see how completely nuts it can get. Now, onto a bit of tabletop news. Numan Era is getting a second edition. That's going to be split into two books called Numan Era Discovery and Destiny.
Interesting.
All right. Let's see. They're currently opening pre-orders. I'm not going to be pre-ordering. Now, for those who don't know, Numan Era is a spiritual successor to Planescape, and is also created by Monty Cook. The whole idea is that you have a far future Earth that takes place 1 billion years in the future. There have been 8 civilizations beforehand that have come into power, created great things, and then disappeared. And a lot of the adventures involve scavenging technology that's no longer understood. It's a second edition. They seem to, instead of focusing on exploration, they seem to be putting a focus on carving their own villages, basically doing the whole end game kind of thing that AD&D used to. I greatly look. Kyoryu, the dice system was the Cypher system, Cypher, and I greatly look forward to Monty Cook being accused of a racist or sexist for the third time. Because because there was an entry in the original Numan Era, and that caused a bit of a shitstorm on RPG.net. No surprise, because that place has been overrun by social justice, and I only use it as a resource. But let me grab my book and read you guys this particular entry. And see, this is why I bitch at games that don't have an index. And the thing about Numan Era is that so much of the world is weird, and I don't mean that in some marketing bullshit. I mean it is quite literally weird, strange, and full of things that shouldn't make sense. Okay, what got him what caused a bit of a controversy was a monster entry called the Napoleon Wife. And if you don't mind, I will read off its description. These biological constructs appear to be beautiful female humans. Their only function, however, is to seduce male humans so they can get pregnant. Pregnancy in any Napoleon wife opens a transdimensional rift inside its womb, giving an ultra-terrestrial, such as an Abkos, an Erithgrask, or any ultra-terrestrial creature the DM wishes, access to this level of existence. The time required for gestation, which is actually the aligning of phase changes to create the rift, ranges from 10 minutes to 9 months. When the ultra-terrestrial creature is born, the Napoleon wife nurtures it as if it were a child, even though it clearly is not. During this time, the construct defends the child fiercely, using incredible strength and resilience. The young creature develops quickly, and its only compulsion is to hunt down and kill its father. Once it does so, it is free to do as it pleases in the world. Napoleon wives are likely the cause of many ultra-terrestrials currently in the Ninth World.
So Zoe Quinn, right?
The whole idea with them was basically an old school kind of succubus, just with the Ninth World weirdness. And that apparently was enough to get him accused of being a sexist.
Yeah, that sounds like bullshit to me.
But
they just probably got pissed off because they're probably taking the piss out of their literally who's.
Yeah, but to their credit, I have yet to see the Napoleon wife be taken out of any copy of the book. So it apparently, and I get the feeling it's still going to be in there with this new edition of Numan Era.
So in other words, the creator does not give a flying fuck, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, let's check the comment. Let's go choose. So, and just to give an example of the kind of weirdness. Here's a couple. I'm going to share with you guys in the Discord a couple images from Numan Era, just to show kind of the art style that they go with.
Oh, it's pretty nice.
You have this weird mix of SF and I would say fantasy, but not in the traditional sense. And I've seen a lot of people say that there's a bit of a Middle Eastern vibe, which to a certain extent I can see.
I'm seeing a sort of a bit of like an Egyptian, like ancient Egyptian sort of vibe to like the clothes and the sort of styling of the
But I don't see it really as a period piece as opposed to a piece of many periods.
Yeah.
In a bit of full circle, you may recall there in our first episode of the Monastery, I talked about Legend of the Five Rings for a bit. Well, Fantasy Flight has finally announced that yes, the fifth edition of Avars role-playing game is going to be coming out, and it's going to be using this hybrid setup between the roll and keep system that was used for fourth and the Genesis system that's used for the Star Wars RPGs they do. And as an aside, how sad is it that Fantasy Flight Games seems to be the only people who have a handle on how you're supposed to be treating Star Wars? Because a lot of the stuff that everybody hates with the new movies and the like, Those aren't in the RPGs, and they're not in any of the miniatures games. Hell, most of the time when they've been doing that, they focus just on the original trilogy as their starting point. But first thing that they brought in was the first thing that they announced was the starter set, as shown here, which looks to be pretty standard. We've got the rules. We've got a GM book. It looks like there's going to be these spreads that are kind of pre-made character sheets. I see a Bushi, a Shugenja. It's probably a courtier and a tattooed monk.
That's some cool artwork.
The beginner game is going to be that's from the beginner game. That's going to be about $40. It says it's for 3 to 5 players, but I only see 4 sheets, and it's probably not going to be using traditional maps because that's not how this kind of game works. And then there's the core rulebook as shown here. It seems very clear that they're not interested in pulling that cleanup shit when it comes to the artwork. And Kyoryu, yes, the Genesis system is the one that was used in Edge of the Empire. I'd also note that we had briefly used the 5th edition rule set from the beta test, but I'm not entirely sure if the final product is going to be like that, because a lot of as much as a lot of video game studios use betas essentially as glorified demos, there are some exceptions to the rule, and that rule doesn't generally apply in tabletop betas in the few that I've done. They're also putting out a GM's kit and a dice pack. The one problem that I could see people having is the fact that instead of using traditional dice, it's using symbol-based dice, which is always going to be a hard sell. As you can see there, that's the dice pack.
That's cool.
There's probably going to be a few dice in the starter. And it seems to be doing this weird mix of the two particular styles. And looking over a few things regarding some of the other bits of news. And Kyoryu, yeah, the price is gonna be about $40, which is fairly standard. I suppose I should talk a bit about the whole D&D gate thing.
Oh, is there any latest news about that?
Not real. There hasn't been a whole lot. I'd imagine that you're not going to hear a whole lot of news about that until next month, because August is when Gen Con starts.
Or when Anita Sarkeesian's going to be there,
and also Quartering's going to be there too. If these two cross paths, I guarantee it's going to be something nuclear. But that reminds me, there is something else that was brought to my attention by the Quartering as well. Why is freaking Wizards of the Coast going after Boogie? I swear to God,
this feels very. I remember hearing about that, and this feels very culty. And let's be honest. It's kind of amusing that they're going after somebody with such a large base when the resulting attendance for GP Vegas was not good.
Yeah,
especially the fact that they had, I think it was like 25 or 50% less vendors than last year.
Yeah, they keep raising their prices and bringing idiotic e-celebs there. Oh my god.
Or there was also the whole thing of bringing in two. Let me be clear on one thing: Magic cannot be an esport. They have been trying so hard to try and make it an esport with the Twitch streaming and all that, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, in fact, I think it turns players off because most people in gaming, contrary to what these idiots might have you think, they think esports is a fucking cancer.
I can say from my own experience, and I wanted to ask like Mark Kern or a few other people about this, because I have the distinct feeling that trying to be an esport actually causes more problems for game development.
Oh, I would imagine.
And the reason why I say that is because of the experience that I had with League for the past 7 years. Because I had been an on-again, off-again player of League for that amount of time, and aside from the fact that Riot loves to use the word change. They love to say that they're making changes to just about everything, and the amount of patch notes got unbearable after a while. But there was also the fact that they would introduce changes, then do nothing with them, then act surprised that they weren't being used as much. The biggest example of this was Dominion, where they shut it down because nobody was using it, even though people pointed out to them the reason why we weren't using it because you didn't give us a reason to. You put it out there and then did nothing with it.
That's the problem with esports right now. Like I said, it's the latest cash grab craze, along with battle royale and fucking loot boxes. It's like you're not going to be able to create a league. You'll have like any esports game now is going to be a dime a dozen. I mean, it's like having it's like having football, but you have like 70 fucking leagues going on instead of like 1 or 2.
Well, we've all seen what happened with the Overwatch League, and Glink did a very good mini doc on that. And also, Kyoryu, do not tempt irony. If I hear about competitive D&D teams, I will start smacking people.
God.
Yeah, please don't talk about that garbage.
Never mind the fact that if they were to go that route, that would go completely against why people play D&D and why people play tabletop RPGs. Furthermore, it would go everything against what because they love to say, "Oh, it's about story. We're not trying to compete. We're trying to tell a story together." And then you try and introduce a competition.
Ridiculous.
Besides, I mean, they tried this like 6 years ago when it was called Layer Assault, and nobody did it.
Yeah, and I have another theory why they want to try this esport crap on different avenues, because in esports, in any competitive game, inevitably you'll have griefers. I shit you not. Inevitably, you will have griefers, and what will lead to is, and this is, I know this is just a theory, but it might lead to people crying foul about harassment. More fuel for the fucking outrage merchants.
I think we all have memories of that one guy. That guy who would always talk hot shit whenever he was winning at fighting games or at FIFA or Madden, or in my personal case, Blitz.
Uh-oh.
And whenever you kicked his ass, he would complain that the game was cheating. Basically pull the Phil Burnell.
That's why I don't play multiplayer.
No, there's also the fact that these sorts of people cannot they come with griefers. That's certainly going to be a thing, especially when the devs do a shit job of balancing their own games. The Division had and DayZ standalone have some notorious griefing issues. Although DayZ has a litany of issues beyond just that.
Yeah, tell me about it.
But the other thing.
Doku's here.
Yeah, I can.
Hello,
Hey, what's
Doku.
up, guys? Sorry for being late. Just got home.
No worries, man. It is what it is. Just what we went over the Geek of the Week, went over a bit of tabletop news. Now we're talking about esports and game development. You mentioned a thing about griefers. One other thing that I think really hurts matters when it comes to the relationship with esports and game development is the insistence on a meta.
Ugh. That's the kiss of death with game development.
Well, the idea should be is that you have a neutral playing field, and with skill you should be able to use any sort of build. But whenever a meta is introduced in any sort of competitive thing, or whether it be that or it be the tier system that ends up happening in fighters, you end up having this implication that this is what you have to do in order to even win.
You know, I gotta say one thing. I forgot who said it, but I know Ethan Van Sciver did briefly touch on it. But when you look at what's happening with, obviously Jawbreakers, Cyberfrog, but also taking Star Citizen into account, I do think that with the way a lot of these industries are going, self-funding and crowdfunding might actually be the future if this trend continues.
Exactly, because all it is now with some of these games, with every entertainment industry, it's not about making good shit anymore. It's about making stuff for the brand and basically pushing their kitschy garbage out there.
No, it's like Hollywood. It's either you play it safe and you put out a mediocre product, or you pander to essentially what the development crew and the higher ups want. And the industry has become so detached from, the actual passion, the passion, wanting to do something good, put out a product. You have to check all these boxes, and God forbid, like with Ivy and Soul Calibur, God forbid you have a badass chick in a sexy outfit. You can't have that now, can we? We can't have booby physics anymore.
Of course not.
Oh, it's Yellow Flash. Yellow Flash was talking about it. And, why, it's like the whole reason the Dead or Alive franchise even got popular to begin with wasn't because of the fact that they had, accurate martial arts or anything. A lot of it had to do with booby physics. I mean, shit, they had Extreme Beach Volleyball, and the first Extreme Beach Volleyball was actually a successful game. But now, if you did that, you would get shit on by, the gaming media. And it's the same thing with comic books. It's the same thing with movies.
We'll see how the whole thing plays out. But the whole thing with Boogie strikes me as a case of trying way too hard to act like they're still the big swinging dick on the whole thing, because an easy way for them to get really scared is if either say Privateer Press or Fantasy Flight Games says to Boogie, hey, we've got some card games you might want to try out. You want to come to one of our events? Okay. and then they end up snagging him, and you've got a bunch of his followers going with that. Like Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake.
So they're mad because they didn't go. Boogie didn't go to that event. Well, tough titty, bitch.
Oh, are you talking about Boogie 2988?
Yep.
Okay, the thing with Boogie 2988 that really set them over the edge is when he was on that stream where he said, well, basically he was making the case for don't be heavy-handed, don't try to force-feed people politics or your political agenda.
I'll just let it run slow. Take it slow.
And he said it himself. Slowly change minds. Where Boogie screwed up is he said, don't make gay marriage legal now. Wait 20 years so we can slowly change minds so that people will accept it. And I get that he's using it as an analogy, but Boogie, you screwed up because you should have known better with the kind of people you're talking about because they're going to take it literally.
Oh my God, 20 years! He wants us to wait 20 years!
And this is what, and that's aside from all that, the next issue I got with Boogie is the guy is too fucking passive about everything. I mean,
he's soft.
You remember?
And he apologizes at the drop of a hat.
You remember VidCon last year?
Yeah, him with Anita.
Oh my God, Anita better thank Yahweh I was not in Boogie's position. Because if she did that shit to me, I don't care if she's a woman, it would have been on.
Well,
I would.
You don't put your hands on somebody like that.
Well, it is Anita Sarkeesian we're talking about too.
Yeah,
so
I don't consider those people human as far as I'm concerned.
And the thing is, I'm not a Boogie fan, but
yeah,
I'll be blunt. I really don't like Boogie because anyone who doesn't stick by their guns and stick to their argument and apologizes to these kind of people, you don't have my respect.
Yeah, neither.
He flip-flops.
I don't think he's a bad guy, but at the same time, dealing with someone like Anita Sarkeesian, I would have chewed her frickin' head off. But I can get why Boogie was kind of intimidated by her because, well, it's fucking Anita Sarkeesian.
Yeah,
but I don't know if any of you guys know of his personal history in his childhood. What happened to him?
Yeah, I heard about that.
He had a really tough childhood, and I can understand why that makes him turn tail and run and avoid conflict as much as possible. He has anxiety issues and things as well like that.
I get that, but like I said, that a lot of people have really shitty childhoods, but you know what?
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you, that's no excuse.
Yeah, exactly. I had a shitty childhood with my parents splitting and living with different step parents as well that were physically abusive. But I still, haven't let that change me. I still stick to my guns on opinions and such.
Yeah, when you're getting bullied, especially from someone like Anita Sarkeesian, you can't be just turning tail and run. You got to stand your fucking ground. Otherwise, they're gonna keep hammering on you and hammering on you and hammering on you until the end of time.
Well, and that's the classic SJW tactic. I mean, and that's why I can be empathetic towards.
It's not just SJWs; it's cults. Period.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's the second that you show any sign of weakness, or the second that you backpedal or try to apologize or do anything along those lines, now you're open for attack, and they are ruthless and relentless when it comes to that. So, as I was going to say, I can be empathetic towards Boogie, but I don't have respect for him for trying to turn tail and apologize for speaking his mind.
Yeah, exactly.
You speak your mind, that's your opinion. Stick to it, dude, because the second as Mildred knows, you give an inch,
they'll take 10 miles.
They'll take the circumference of the Earth and then one astronomical unit at that.
Yeah, and like I said, when it comes, exactly. Don't be. You have to go Cobra Kai on them. No fucking mercy on their ass.
You can't give these people an inch of ground because they'll do exactly what they've done to almost every industry they've managed to infiltrate. You give them just a little bit of ground, a little bit of room so they can weasel in, and they will destroy everything you love.
Mhm.
They're like parasites, aren't they?
Now, speaking of which, there has been a bit of an update regarding Valve's policy that caused so much salt. Now, and this comes courtesy of one angry gamer. Quote, during the White Night St. Petersburg 2018 business conference for the games industry in Russia, Valve's general counsel, Jean-Peter Ewert, apologies if I mispronounced that, gave a presentation about the company's future, about some of their upcoming tools, and about how they won't be curating their games. PC Gamer collected a number of tweets from HeroCraft's Michael Kuzmin, who posted up some of the slides that Ewert presented. One of these slides rolled through Valve's policies regarding game content on Steam. The slide reads, Steam is a big opportunity. Yes, there are a lot of new releases on Steam. There are more games being made, and there are a lot of new players. The slide states that Steam is a big opportunity because there are a lot of new releases on Steam every day now. Then this ties into the next slide about Valve's hands-off approach to curation, which it says, Steam is a different kind of opportunity. We don't sell ad space or pick winners and losers. We are not the taste police. Great games find their audience. Huge variety of business models. Huge variety in scope, style, mechanics. And the thing that apparently has gotten some people hot was them saying, we are not the taste police. Then it goes on to say, in this case, Valve is reiterating that as a business, they won't be judging or removing games based on content. This stance obviously made plenty of gamers happy. Recently, the company noted the only time they would step in is to remove games either to trolling or illegal content. Valve's free speech stance was met with a lot of resistance and pushback from games journalists, who have been trying desperately to make inroads to become curators at Steam so they could eventually remove sexy time games, violent games, games that appeal to straight white males, and any game that offended them. A number of websites all collectively came out on the same day writing furiously about how Valve wouldn't be censoring games on Steam. Many of these sites had articles written by people associated with the game journal Pros, the same group that labeled Gamergate a harassment campaign and pushed that narrative up into the mainstream. Valve adopted the hands-off approach after some of their staff attempted to enact the waifu holocaust and carry out anime genocide on visual novels, dating sims, and sexy time games. Customers were not pleased with Valve's attempts to become censorship curators, especially by retroactively attempting to censor games that were already censored. So Valve backed off from the decision and went in the opposite direction. Valve valuing freedom over censorship also caught the ire of a Christian anti-porn organization known as NCOSE, who screeched unbridled rage at the company for not censoring or removing access to virtual titties on stream. Both the authoritarian right and the despotic left were angered at Valve for embracing the American tradition of free speech, providing that gamers don't have any allies outside of their own hardcore insular communities. Hopefully what's mentioned in the Ewert slides hold true and Valve doesn't waver under pressure from SJWs when more sexy time games or ultra-violent games are released in the near future. For now, actual gamers are just happy that Valve isn't ramming the rod of censorship up the hole of freedom of choice.
I think that decision, it came right from Newell himself. I've got a feeling it came from Gabe Newell himself.
I want to see some of these individuals that are advocating for video game censorship. Just give them all a free copy of Monster Girl Quest. See what they do.
Yeah, especially those fucking evangelocons that basically try to censor Steam as well.
Oh, it would be amazing. It would be amazing.
Was that the N? No, I'm thinking of the NCOS, which is the charity for child sexual exploitation or something.
Yeah, but the thing is, they're actually they're actually a anti-pornography organization.
Yeah.
It's just they changed their name to make themselves not sound like they're part of the Jimmy Swaggart wing.
They are in all but name.
I find this. Sorry, go ahead.
The other thing that it ends up showing is how these sorts of people, and I'm going to put out a moratorium, whether it be on the extreme end of the left or the right. I'm going to refer to them as what they are, and that is cults. Because as I said before, every single one of their moves is straight out of the playbook of a cult of personality. I suppose in this case it would be a cult of idea, but the fact still stands. And
it's a dogma.
What they really cannot stand is being told no, which is why as much as I would, and I'm going to bring this full circle when it came to the story with Boogie. I'm going to say that if he had more gumption and less fixation on trying to please everyone, which is ultimately his biggest fault. He would then I think he would be much better off.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
That goes without question.
The thing when it comes, the best way to fight against these sorts of people is not to go at them guns blazing, but to take what they say and mock them.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with the phrase from Mark Twain.
Well, Mildred, you know me. As a writer, there is one very, very common statement that should be one of the 5 tenets that anyone who's a writer or a creator of any sort should always abide by. If you try to please everyone, you please no one. Exactly. And it's held true every time you see someone attempt it. It's a simple fact. People are going to hate it. People are going to love it. I mean, shit, look at how popular Game of Thrones or Harry Potter is. There's plenty of people out there who love it. There's plenty of people out there who hate it. I mean, shit, look at 50 Shades of Grey, for crying out loud. One of the most garbage books I've ever had the displeasure of reading. Somehow that got made into a movie. And they didn't just do one movie, they did all 3 of them. And they're all shit. But people still watched it. So, I mean, I can't knock...
That book is basically smut for basic bitches.
Oh, dude. No, the best 50... This is kind of off topic, but just... If you really want to laugh your ass off, 50 Shades of Grey narrated by Gilbert Gottfried.
Oh, God. Goku,
you stuck my thumb into my vagina and spun it around and around and around.
Oh, God, you're gonna get it.
Oh, God. Here comes. We're in a community guideline strike for this shit.
I still got one strike for somebody not liking me talking shit about Hyperforce. I don't need 2. But
I'm sorry, I just couldn't help myself.
But
kind of like a Christian. I went full Christian Grey. I apologize.
But Mark Twain had once said, "Power, money, persuasion, supplication, persecution. These can lift a colossal humbug, push it a little, crowd it a little, weaken it a little, century by century. But only laughter can blow it to rags and atoms at a blast. Against the assault of laughter, nothing can stand."
Meme wars.
Yeah, that's
why. Bring on the memes.
Yeah, that's how you beat these motherfuckers. Yeah, bring on the fucking memes.
Yeah, make fun of them. That's the best.
And also remember, kids, the left cannot meme.
Yeah.
Well, I know that I think Aiden had commented on that, and she's going to be far more adept at talking about this than my dumbass will be. But I will go one step further. Not only can they not meme, they can't funny.
Exactly.
And the reason why they can't funny is an issue of priorities. And this ties into precisely why the core reason why I've argued that I don't want politics in entertainment. Because of course, whenever I say that, there's always somebody who's going to say, but you're perfectly fine with say Genosha in X-Men, which has had politics, or X-Men in general, which has had politics. Except here, the difference is
it's relevant. It's relevant to the story.
No. The difference is priorities. The story of the X-Men, first and foremost, is not trying to hammer home that it's about how bad segregation is. What it is trying to do first and foremost is use those elements as the building blocks to tell its story. When you have a lot of these works that try and be political, it's the political message that is more important, and everything else is just secondary. It is the case of going from subtext to simply text. That is why I've argued that a lot of these political games, these art games, and all that. Do you honestly think anybody's going to remember, say, Firewatch in 10 years? Did you even remember Firewatch existed until I brought it up?
What the fuck's Firewatch?
Firewatch was that walking sim a couple years ago that got a bit of a buzz, then disappeared, and I didn't hear about it. And I didn't hear about it since
crap.
Until the developer then filed a false DMCA claim against PewDiePie because PewDiePie was streaming PUBG and said nigger or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mildra, I'm actually very glad you brought that up, because love or hate the guy, I was watching No Bullshit's review of the Sicario sequel, which, by the way, really good movie. But they take, and this is where SJWs ultimately fail. You can take current events, social issues, things like that, and use them as plot devices to progress the story and add some depth and some realism to a story, but it doesn't mean you have to actually give your opinion on it.
Yeah,
exactly.
What SJWs do is they take a political and a social issue and they make that the major plot point of the story. They don't focus on the characters. They don't focus on the plot line. They don't focus on the situation at hand. There's a point in Sicario, spoilers, where there's some terrorist bombings that start off the movie. Yeah, the first 3 minutes of it. And halfway through the movie, they're going through their stuff. I won't give that many spoilers, but there's a point where the government handler says, "We figured out the identities. They were from New Jersey. Shut the operation down." But it still advances the plot. They don't give a political opinion. They don't pick a side. It's just something that is relevant to current events, and it adds depth to the plot, and it makes the story more interesting and more intriguing, seeing how they go forward with it with that knowledge in hand. You don't need this heavy-handed, one-sided political rhetoric.
Yeah,
that's what SJWs don't get.
Yeah, have you noticed that most of these SJW works, you know what they resemble? They resemble those fear-mongering one of those fear-mongering Christian bitch fests from the 1980s and the 1990s. It's pretty much that now. It's
that's the Southern Baptist, the Westboro Baptist Church kind of bullshit.
Yeah, it's like if you read any of these stupid outrage videos from back in the game, like there was that one thing where there's two guys bitching about toys and games being like some sort of satanic
oh yeah,
influence or some shit.
The panic.
Oh, dude, it was like them bitching about the far right evangelical Christians bitching about TMNT. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is satanic.
Yeah. Also,
and Pokemon as well.
And don't forget that this stupid conspiracy theory that you've heard of backmasking, right?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, the backmasking conspiracy theory, probably one of the reasons the PMRC came to being anyway. Besides, it's in addition to Tipper Gore's daughter listening to Prince one night, and she clutched her fucking pearls and saw as an opportunity to get Al Gore to become president.
Well, dude, it's even funny. I forgot about this, but I actually want to bring it up just because it's somewhat relevant. And as Mildred knows, I tend to search out political shit because I find it amusing because I like looking at spurgs, be it on the left or the right. But I remember looking up I forget, it was something looking up for some shit to talk about evangelical, very far right leaning religious spurgs. Mm-hmm. And I somehow managed to run across a comic of anthropomorphics who are advocating for porn and end up in like a brawl or a riot or some shit against like anti-porn evangelicals. And I was laughing my ass off the whole fucking time. It was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. I think it was on DeviantArt. I don't even remember. It was just funny as shit.
Well, at least it's funnier than a chick tract.
Oh, dude, it was hilarious. I
don't
remember what it was. All I know is it's fucking funny.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine an anthropomorphic tiger trying to rip the throat out of some like Baptist preacher with like her tits fucking hanging out and like claws at his throat. It's just like, what is this shit?
Oh, that's some David Lynch shit right there.
Yeah, welcome to the internet.
Yep.
It was great. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't laughed quite that hard in probably since the last time I saw a Riley Dennis video.
Oh my god.
Oh, it's wonderfully hilarious.
As a bit of an aside, I do think I should I feel I should delve into something I had kind of hinted at over the weeks, but since we're coming off the shores of E3 and coming off the whole thing for me personally with Origins, there is one genre thing that I've hinted at over the years, but I need to fully explain. The fact that, because I think I said this to you guys either in Discord or on a previous episode, that I do not care for the term JRPG.
Oh, you've said that shit.
Oh, yeah. It's an RPG with a certain kind of art style. Whatever.
Well, putting aside the fact that I'm not even sure if Japan even uses that term, the reason why I don't like that term is an inconsistency. Because I end up having this sort of circular argument quite often, where I ask, okay, what is an RPG? And I'll hear, what's an RPG from Japan? And they say, so does that make Demon Souls and Dark Souls JRPGs because they're from Japan? No, it's got to be one with a manga-esque art style. Well, does that mean Battle Chasers or Septerra Core are JRPGs because they emulate a similar art style? No, because those were made in the States. They have to be made in Japan. Yeah. You see where this goes?
Yeah, you could say the same with turn-based combat system is JRPG. No, that's just a gameplay mechanic design, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The Western games, I think, have done turn-based.
And I only started hearing it during that Xbox 360 generation where Microsoft decided to act like they were the big swinging dick in the party because they managed to actually not suck at a console. If only they knew what was going to happen in a few years.
Well,
I'm not
also
talking
the
about
other thing.
But
The other thing is if it's a JRPG, since Alone in the Dark and Resident Evil were both Japanese studios, does that make it Japanese survival horror, or is it just survival horror?
That's the other issue is the selectiveness. It's like, I have games in my tabletop collection that are from Japan, and I have games that take heavy inspiration from Japan, but aren't made in Japan. I've mentioned L5R. There's also Anima, which I did the longest review I've ever done for. So it's a case of I don't put that sort of categorization there. So why specifically should I be putting it for role-playing video games? The approach I prefer taking is console style and PC style, and I realize that's a bit harder to grasp since things are releasing on both ends of the spectrum. But the quote-unquote JRPG style was always designed for consoles. The original Dragon Quest was designed to give a wizardry or Ultima-like experience on the Famicom. And even though a lot of people won't admit it, a lot of RPGs that have come out since have been taking notes from Dragon Quest in one way or another. Because of that, that whole console approach is still in their DNA. Because even if you could get, say, Final Fantasy 15 on PC, you're not going to be playing it with a keyboard and mouse. Even if whereas a game like Planescape, you could play Torment Plains of Numan Era on a console, but it's not. But it's going to feel awkward. And and that is the core line of how I divide it. A game like Planescape is a PC styled one. A game like Skyrim is a PC styled one. A game like Final Fantasy or Tales is going to be a console style.
Well, I have another question. Did any of y'all play Kingdom Under Fire: The Crusaders on the original Xbox?
Nope.
No, I don't think I played that.
Well, that was from Blue Side Studios, which is a Korean company, and you had a real-time strategy element where you had to command units, like infantry or cavalry or archers, but then you could flip between, like the RTS element, and then you would control your commander character, and it would turn into Dynasty Warriors. So how do we quantify that? It's FPS slasher with RTS, but it's Korean. Trying to quantify that, you're going to end up looking like the whole 56 gender LGBT fucking, acronym.
Yeah, and some of that is inevitable because of how we like to categorize things. That's what
people have this innate urge to put labels on things. It's like, why do you need to label
because
it?
people don't like uncertainty. That's why when it came to that parent, I wasn't too surprised when he pulled that whole blame game, because that is exactly what would be expected when there's this sort of uncertainty.
Well, and that's kind of my point, and I'm not going to get political, even if I want to, but I do think this is relevant and it's pertinent to point out. there is an innate desire for people to put labels on things because, like you said, uncertainty. People like to know what's going on or what they're getting into. But when you start talking specifically, we'll use identity politics as an example. You need to put a label on something so you can understand what it is before you get into it. And who the hell has a hairdryer going on?
Oh, I think that's me because my air's going.
It sounds like you have some gorgeous locks there, sir.
Head and shoulders.
I bow down to you, mighty Thor.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't got here, but I think it's probably because my air's going because it's been hot as hell the last few days.
Oh, dude, I don't blame you. It's been like 98 to 102 degrees here. It's fucking ridiculous.
And it's sticking around for a week.
Yeah, that it is. But no, it comes down, and this is kind of why I absolutely hate identity politics, but I find it very interesting to study from a pseudo. I'm gonna pull a JF, a pseudo intellectualist standpoint. But
that was a good one. You even got that part when he's talking like this.
But I need to talk about the idea of the identity politics and the need to put labels on certain things so that people can feel more comfortable about them. Okay, I'm done. But there is this inherent need by human beings, and I do think it does stem from the fact that we are social creatures, but at the same time, we don't like uncertainty. We don't like things we don't understand. So when you are talking about trying to label something like video games, or trying to label LGBT community, or trying to say I'm left, I'm right, or just the mob mentality you see from, like, say, the Proud Boys or Antifa, or, take your pick. There is a need to kind of check that box because as social creatures, we don't like the idea of we aren't unique or we are ourselves and we have personal accountability. You want to fit into a group. You want to be accepted. You want to feel like you have some sort of association with some kind of culture. I mean, it's the whole idea behind the concept of fandom. And not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but when you let it run too far, you end up with the idea of mob mentality. And that's the problem where what we're seeing now is, fandoms, be it Star Wars, comics, DC versus Marvel, or be it politics, the left versus the right, or, Antifa versus the Proud Boys. There is this idea of, I feel like I need to have a sense of belonging, or just the same concept of, on a much more grounded social level, that if, let's look at how, I know all of us were kids once. Mm-hmm. What do all the kids who don't have friends, what do? They isolate themselves. They seem depressed. They tend to be very shut in, and they kind of retreat into their own little crowd or their own little group, or be it just themselves. Because if you don't have that sense of social acceptance, then it goes completely against human nature. Because, like I said, we are social creatures, and that's one of the strongest strengths that, again, this happens on the right, but it's really something that is exploited heavily by SJWs, because you fit the narrative, you fall in line, lockstep, 1984, and God forbid you go against it, because now all of a sudden you're ostracized, and you're made fun of, and you're attacked. I mean, it is a very strong sociological weapon.
And who's got their ringtone going on there?
That's me. Hold on. Let me make the call.
He's got the air going. He's got his phone. You were talking about, like SJWs and being on the attack, and like it's almost like, well, they're narcissistic, aren't they? And I just saw this Kotaku article. They're going, we talk about the queerness in games, from Overwatch ships to E3 smooches. Obviously, they're going on about
because they They clearly want Pride Month to extend forever and ever.
They're going on about Assassin's Creed Odyssey with you can play as a male or female and pursue gay or straight.
If I may step in on that, am I the only one who finds it a little bit rich that they're praising Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, not Brotherhood, but Odyssey for doing the whole choose your gender thing? When multiple times over, hang on. Multiple times over, these people have said that there's too many male protagonists, even though the vast majority of games available, and everyone from Vic and everyone else has checked this, are ones where you can pick that.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh, sorry about that.
Oh god, he's dying.
Don't worry, I'm okay.
I just find it kind of amusing that they decided to pull a Janice simply out of convenience.
I mean, this article, it's so funny seeing the comment section on fire. Like, there's someone going, "Well, I'm gay, and I don't care. I don't care. As long as the game is good. Why does it have to conform to? Why do we have to feel like we need to be represented?
Yeah, fill out a fucking checkbox. And you know what? This is very apropos because I'm going to read off a tweet from Bunny King of all people.
This should be fun.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if he's saying this in jest or not, but I was joking just a minute ago with him saying, "Have you been ingesting soy?" But it says about the Last of Us, right? He says, "If you have a problem with The Last of Us Part 2 because lesbian, chances are pretty high that you're either a virgin or the kind of guy that deep fries their boogers and eats them. So which one are you?"
Then again, if you were to bring his beard out, you'd probably get a full cup of soy milk.
Yeah, and Louis Laval retweeted with a comment and basically said, "Or someone that has observed 10 years of flagrant propagandizing in video games for the ends of social justice. If you think the decision to make this character was for any other reason than pushing politics, you being absurd." Now, I don't know if Bunty King was actually jesting here. He might be. But if he was, shame on him.
Half and half.
It kind of sounds like a joke, but I will admit I want to play The Last of Us 2 simply for the lesbian sex scene because I've run out of porn.
Because the thing is, I've not played I've played a little bit round of friends of the first Last of Us, and I think it was in like a DLC it established that she was or lesbian.
Yeah, and on paper I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, her first love was like this girl. I can't remember what her name was. This sort of black girl. It was like her first love. It was that there were two young girls surviving, and they, their friendship blossomed into, an innocent little relationship.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Yeah, I think the reason they put the lesbian relationship in The Last of Us 2, yes, it's to push politics, okay? Because normally, no one else would have a problem with it. I'll give you an example. Fear Effect 2. Remember that game?
Yeah, and they certainly remember it because they love to bash it any chance they get. And there is a kind of third Fear Effect called Fear Effect Sedna. I haven't played it yet. I do have it in my archives though.
I don't remember that one.
I never played Fear Effect, but I remember the old PlayStation 1 magazines, and it would have screenshots like, oh yeah, look at this lesbian couple.
Fear Effect was actually a halfway decent series. It was serviceable. It was basically tank control survivor horror. except you're playing the main character with big boobs.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, since we're on the topic, this reminds me of a situation a few years back where I managed to piss somebody off fairly well, and it was very entertaining, I might say. But it had to do with what were the three characters in question? It was Psylocke, Kasumi from Dead or Alive, and another character. And it had to do with the fact that it's like, oh, well, they're just dressed skimpy, and that it's like, you realize if you know anything about the female anatomy, their leg strength tends to actually be stronger than men, and women are a lot more flexible than men. So if you're gonna be in a fight, you want to be able to high kick a motherfucker with as minimal resistance as possible. So you're either gonna be wearing an outfit like Kasumi, or you're gonna be wearing a fucking leotard or some sort of, bodysuit like Psylocke is. Because that doesn't restrict your movements, which means you can high kick the shit out of a motherfucker and break their jaw.
Yep.
You're not going to be able to do that even if you're in a fucking miniskirt.
Doku, you're putting too much thought into this, because what you're forgetting two things. One, people who get offended at that sort of thing, I guarantee you they've never been in a fight, and they've never seen, and they even would react with horror to the thought of fighting. Like it, because keep in mind they see the idea of putting any sort of conflict system in games to be an abhorrence or a base thing. And I do not mean base in terms of base, but in terms of we're above that. We're not like those petulant man children.
Oh my God, you saw her panties or you saw her ass. It's like, yeah, it's not really going to matter when her foot connects to your face, is it?
Exactly.
They did lollipop chainsaw.
Yeah, they never opened a freaking biology book either, because like I said, if they had, they would know this fact. Especially those people that claimed, that are in that stupid cult that claim they are personal trainers.
Well, and that's the thing. Let's take a real world example. Let's look at Olympic gymnasts. There's a reason leotards are designed the way that they are. It is the least restrictive amount of clothing without you being, naked, that you could possibly have that still allows free range of movement. So if you're gonna be in a fight, you don't want your movement restricted. I guarantee you, if I'm going into a fight and it's not going to involve me, having to wear body armor and carrying a gun, I don't want to be restricted. So I'm going to wear the least amount of clothing possible because I want free range of motion.
I had to wear
plate mail once.
I had to wear. If I don't have that, I'm screwed. And there were multiple times where somebody was going to be joking about, hey, could you get up if we tipped you over? I was like, you do that, and the second I get out of this armor, you are dead.
Yeah, exactly.
But I felt like I was moving like a very mobile robot. Like it was never mind the weight. It was an effort to just move my arms around, especially. And I did decently for my level of experience, but I never want to do that again. Never mind. I learned one important lesson. Go to the bathroom before you have to put the thing on, because you're going to be standing there for about 10 minutes.
Oh my God, Mark Kern's getting all sorts of.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm looking at Twitter right now. All day, Mark Kern's been getting a lot of salt. It's salt mining day for old Mark there right now.
Well, just to finish up, they took away his navels, bastards.
Yeah, it's not only that he's talking what where the left have fucked up with their politics, and all of a sudden they're reeing like a bunch. They're reeing like a motherfucker at him because he actually told the truth on their ass.
Oh, of course they are. And we lost Mildred. Interesting.
Uh-oh, where'd he go?
But just to finish up that point, and I used to do martial arts, and there is
But
quite a few women that I did martial arts with, and not women I would ever want to be in a fight with. That's for damn sure. But ask any of them, they would rather fight you in their fucking bra and panties than they would if they're wearing like a full-on uniform. Because, like I said,
well, you don't see anybody in UFC wearing a hijab, do you?
Nope.
Exactly. The less restricted your movements are, the better. So it has nothing to do with sexuality. There actually is a practical aspect to it. So yeah. Sure, games might. Like with Ivy, for example. Yeah, sure, there might be some. What's the proper term? They might exaggerate things from time to time, but I've even heard females say, yeah, using my sexuality is technically a weapon, because if I can distract you for a second, that means that's 1 second I have to knock your ass out.
Well, even Leanna K doesn't have a problem with that.
Something that should be noted is that games are still technically a form of of animation, and animation is very good at exaggerating. Whenever you try and have animation, whether it be CG or hand drawn, try and look realistic, you end up going into Uncanny Valley. That's how you get where the dead go to die. And if you don't know what that is, look it up at your own risk. And if you end up watching it, don't say I didn't warn you.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Because it's fucked up. Jackie Screamer Claus is very messed up in the head. But it's the other thing that I can't help but notice when it comes to the patterns from the cults is creating a problem and then saying that they're the only ones who can fix the problem. Because Bill of Lost Souls decided to open their gob on this and do an editorial about the harassment issue in analog gaming.
Oh my word!
And trying to claim that they were harassed at Origins and not providing any proof. And saying about how we need more harassment policies. Now, personally, if I was running a convention and I was asked to put a harassment policy, here's my harassment policy. This is the golden rule. Read the golden rule. Observe the golden rule. Do not break the golden rule. If you don't know what the golden rule is, look it up. In other words, don't be a dick.
Exactly.
But of course the article goes into things like talking like how we need to not be a jerk and be more and start conversations as a community. Newsflash: tabletop gaming is not one big giant community. It's a bunch of splintered communities over what they particularly like. Second, don't ask me to be an ally.
And Mildred, I would follow your golden rule, except I don't have double D tits, so I can't suffocate somebody with them, so I can't abide by that rule.
That's how I'd like to die, please. Surrounded by some double Ds. That's the way I want to go. Is by asphyxiation by double Ds.
Hey, if you're gonna die, that's a pretty good way to go, if you ask me. I feel like I just